They took off on a clear afternoon, 14 men, 5 planes, a routine training mission over water they had flown dozens of times before. By dinner, they should have been back on the ground, laughing in the mess hall, complaining about the food. They never came back, and neither did the plane that went looking for them. December 5th, 1945, Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station, Florida. The Second World War had been over for less than 4 months. The boys had come home. The parades had happened. And now the US Navy was doing what peacetime navies do: training, drilling, running missions that were supposed to be textbook. Flight 19 was 5 TBF Avenger torpedo bombers, the workhorses of the Pacific campaign. Tough, reliable aircraft, flown by men who had, in many cases, survived actual combat. This mission, Navigation Exercise Number 1, called for a straightforward triangular route, east from Fort Lauderdale, north, then back southwest to base. Total distance, roughly 320 miles. Expected duration, about 2 hours. It should have been nothing. Flight leader Lieutenant Charles Taylor was 30 years old, a decorated veteran with 2,500 hours of flight time. His crew, and the 4 other planes in the flight, were young, some of them still in training, but they were capable, they were ready. At 2:10 in the afternoon, Flight 19 lifted off the runway and headed east over the Atlantic. 2 hours later, everything fell apart. The first distress call came in at 3:40 p.m. Not from Taylor, from the Fort Lauderdale control tower, picking up fragments of radio chatter between the pilots themselves. What they heard was confusing. Taylor's compass, he told his men, wasn't working right. He couldn't identify the islands below. He thought they might be over the Florida Keys, south of where they should be. He turned the flight north to compensate, but they weren't over the Keys. They were over the Bahamas, to the east. By turning north, Taylor was flying them further out to sea. Controllers on the ground tried to reach him. The radio signal was weak, cutting in and out. Taylor's voice, when it came through, sounded strained. He told his trainee pilots to stay close, to fly in formation, to keep their eyes on him. He told them that when one of them ran out of gas, they would all go down together. That detail has haunted historians for 80 years. At 4:45 p.m., Taylor briefly handed over flight leadership to one of his trainees, a Marine captain named Edward Powers, who had a better sense of their actual position. Powers turned the flight east, the right call, the call that might have saved them, but Taylor took back control minutes later and turned them north again. By 5:50 p.m., the sun was setting. The weather was deteriorating. Controllers who managed to break through the static heard Taylor say that he was not certain where they were, that the ocean didn't look right, that everything was wrong. His last confirmed transmission came at 6:04 p.m. After that, silence. The Navy launched a massive search. Within hours of the final transmission, a Martin PBM Mariner flying boat, a large search and rescue aircraft with a crew of 13, took off from Naval Air Station Banana River to find Flight 19. It never reported back either. A merchant ship in the area reported seeing an explosion in the sky, a ball of fire falling toward the water. The Mariner was gone. 13 more men vanished. In the days that followed, the Navy deployed over 300 aircraft and dozens of surface vessels across 250,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. Not a single body. Not a single confirmed piece of wreckage from any of the 6 aircraft. Nothing. The official Navy inquiry was blunt. It listed the cause of Flight 19's disappearance as unknown. It noted Taylor's navigational confusion, the deteriorating weather, the failing light, but acknowledged it could not say with certainty what had happened or where or why the wreckage was never found. And then the story took on a life of its own. In 1964, a writer named Vincent Gaddis published an article in a pulp magazine called Argosy. He coined a phrase that would reshape public understanding of this entire region of the ocean. He called it the Bermuda Triangle, a geographic area bounded roughly by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, within which, he argued, ships and planes had been disappearing under mysterious circumstances for decades. The article exploded. A decade later, Charles Berlitz turned it into a best-selling book. Suddenly, Flight 19 wasn't a tragedy of navigation and weather and bad luck. It was evidence of something else, something unexplainable. Underwater alien bases, vortices in space and time, the lost city of Atlantis pulling ships and planes into another dimension. It made for a great story. It was not supported by the evidence. The Lloyd's of London insurance market, the most hard-nosed risk assessors on the planet, has consistently found that the Bermuda Triangle does not produce a statistically unusual number of disappearances compared to other heavily traveled stretches of ocean. The US Coast Guard does not recognize it as a uniquely dangerous area. The World Wildlife Fund, in a study of the world's most dangerous shipping lanes, did not include it. What the Bermuda Triangle is, more than anything, is a very large, very busy stretch of ocean in a region prone to sudden and severe weather, strong and unpredictable currents, and waters in some places tens of thousands of feet deep. Planes and ships that go down there are often simply gone, consumed by deep water, carried off by current, leaving nothing for searchers to find. That is terrifying enough on its own. But here is what remains genuinely, stubbornly mysterious about Flight 19, and what no official explanation has ever fully put to rest. Charles Taylor was not a careless man. He was experienced. He was decorated. He had flown over water in combat. And yet, in the final hours of that mission, he became absolutely convinced that his instruments were wrong, that the ocean below him was not the ocean he knew, that the islands he could see didn't match anything on his charts. He had two compasses. Both were malfunctioning or appeared to be. He trusted his eyes over his instruments, and his eyes betrayed him. Why were the compasses failing? The Navy's investigation suggested a combination of factors: magnetic interference, possibly the specific atmospheric conditions that afternoon, but the report couldn't say for certain, and the Mariner. The search plane that went up and never came back, most likely destroyed in an in-flight explosion, the PBM Mariner had a known problem with fuel vapor leaks and was nicknamed the Flying Gas Tank by its own crews. An accidental ignition was the probable cause, but no wreckage from the Mariner was ever positively identified either. 14 men from Flight 19, 13 men on the rescue Mariner, 27 people, gone in a single afternoon. In 1991, a team of deep-sea researchers working off Fort Lauderdale discovered a cluster of Avenger aircraft on the ocean floor. For a moment, the world held its breath. This could be it. This could be Flight 19, finally found. But the tail numbers didn't match. The aircraft turned out to be Avengers that had been lost at different times in different incidents over the years. Even the ocean floor held false answers. The search for Flight 19's wreckage continues. The 5 planes have never been definitively located. The families of the 14 men who flew out that afternoon and never returned spent their lives with no grave to visit, no final answer, no moment of confirmed closure. Lieutenant Taylor's mother fought the Navy's initial finding that pilot error was a contributing factor until the day she died. The Navy eventually amended the report, removing the blame attributed to Taylor. It changed the cause of the incident to causes or reasons unknown. Causes or reasons unknown. That is the official record of what happened to Flight 19. Not a myth, not a conspiracy, not an alien abduction. Just 14 men, 5 planes, a compass that lied, and an ocean that gave nothing back. The Bermuda Triangle has swallowed hundreds of stories. Most of them have explanations. Most of them are tragedies dressed up as mysteries because tragedy alone somehow is never enough for us. We need a reason. We need a cause. We need something bigger than bad weather and a broken instrument on a Tuesday afternoon. But sometimes the ocean just takes people, and the silence it leaves behind is the most frightening thing of all. Flight 19 lifted off on a clear December afternoon, flew east into the Atlantic, and disappeared into a mystery that has never been solved. Not because the answer is supernatural, but because the truth is something far harder to accept. Some questions don't get answered, some planes don't come home, and some silences, no matter how long you listen, never break.